If you are interested in liberty and its full potential, a natural question to ask is, what limits liberty? There are two social principles that limit liberty: power and hierarchy. In fact, one implies the other, so they are interdependent. To have a hierarchy implies that there is a distribution of power, and to have a distribution of power implies having a hierarchy. This is what left libertarians mean when they say they are against all authoritarianism, a hierarchical system where distributed power flows from the top down. Control and domination is exercised through the use of violent or nonviolent coercion. Any system that tolerates authoritarianism is a system that promotes and practices the limitation of liberty and is hence not libertarian in nature. By authority, I don't mean that someone cannot be an authority in a particular subject or skill because these by themselves cannot limit another person's actions. Anarchists are also not interested in moving power around, moving it from one place to another. Power, instead of being eliminated, should be dispersed and delegated to each individual equally. This is important because personal power allows people to fulfill their desires and actions, and thus, they need power to meet these goals. All systems of power are prone to abuse and thereby neuter and marginalize those without authority. As Bakunin said, it is the peculiarity of privilege and of every privileged position to kill the intellect and heart of man. The privileged man, whether he be privileged politically or economically, is a man depraved in intellect and heart. Bakunin was well aware of the misuse of power and warned Marxists about the dictatorship of the proletariat when he said, "If you took the most ardent revolutionary, vested him in absolute power, within a year he would be worse than the Tsar himself." Bakunin's prophecy was eventually realized in Stalin. Bakunin wasn't saying that evil people seek power, rather that people tend to abuse power when they have it. This is because power is a self-preserving system bent on protecting itself and expanding its authority. Bakunin notes that no one should be entrusted with power inasmuch as anyone invested with authority must become an oppressor and an exploiter of society. When you leave pockets of power, there is a natural tendency for these power systems to interlink between themselves and create massive associations to amplify their authority to control, influence, and rule over individuals. When power separates, it gives birth to hierarchy. The powerful, in the protection of their own liberty, will view the masses as always incapable of governing themselves, and they must submit at all times to a benevolent yoke of wisdom and a justice, which, in one way or another, is imposed from above. All hierarchies share a common feature. They are organized systems of command and obedience. This is why left libertarians are concerned with social class. When I say class, I don't mean to reduce this to Marx's simplistic bourgeoisie and the proletariat, a view, I should add, that even Marx did not hold. Class is seen as a stratification, a hierarchical division of people in society. Because power is wielded by an elite or an upper class, they have a tendency to dominate the lower classes. Most anarchists today see the division of class in three categories. On the top of the pyramid are the owners of society who wield the most power. These would be the property owners, the rich, and the capitalists. Next, you have the managerial class. The managers take part in decision-making in the state, the private economy, and the educational system. Last, we have the general masses. So how does one class exercise authority over another? Let's say we have a person who owns a chain of workplaces. This person will periodically visit each branch, but he cannot be in all places at all times. In order to exercise authority over others, he hires someone from the managerial class. In order for the manager to get hired, he must share the same interests as the owner and is willing to enforce the owner's power. The regular employee is part of the masses. Today, you might have something like 2% being the owners of society. Another 15 to 20% might be a part of the managerial class. The bottom 80% will be the masses. Of course, this is a highly reductionistic model and in reality is much more complicated. Class division works along the same lines as the military, where privates take orders from sergeants, sergeants take orders from lieutenants, lieutenants take orders from captains, and so on until you reach the commander-in-chief. While there is some individual autonomy at each stage of the hierarchy, in the end, you have a few who ultimately decide the fate of the majority. Because the ownership class has more resources and money, they have the ability to influence the media through think tanks, front groups. They can buy off politicians through contributions, push legislation through business associations, and shape people's personal preferences through the use of advertising and public relations. All of this creates a push economy where companies make products and then manufacture ones. For these reasons, it is easy to see how the top 2% perpetuate social relationships that are based on the needs of the powerful, and how social life can be a reflection of the ownership class. In a class structure, politicians are not the owners of society, but are a part of the managerial class. They perform the function of the managers for the true ruling power, the ownership class. The relationship of private and political power are the outgrowth of the same social objectives, and the directors of both have the presumption to try to reduce all the countless expressions of social life to the mechanical tempo of the machine and tune everything organic to the lifeless rhythm of the political apparatus. However, it should be clear, states arise not because of politicians, but politicians arise because of the ownership class. When power is segregated, this creates an atmosphere not only for the state to appear, but to be controlled and dominated by those with authority and power. Once the state is in existence, the ownership class uses the state to protect itself by pulling power, resources, and wealth. To have a free society, hierarchy must be constantly dissolved in all aspects of life. This isn't to say that laws will be created and enforced to prevent things like patriarchy or classlessness. We seek new social norms that fight against anything that limits liberty, including patriarchy, homophobia, inequality, racism, and religious dogma. The left libertarians suggest replacing vertical power structures, those based on hierarchy, with those that are horizontal. Therefore, individuals within a free association carry the same amount of power as other individuals. In this case, liberty should be a natural unfolding of the institutional structures of society. The anarchist proposes to rescue the self-respect and independence of the individual from all restraint and invasion by authority. Only in freedom will he learn to think and move, and give the very best of himself. Only in freedom will he realize the true force of the social bonds which tie men together, and which are the true foundations of a normal social life. Left libertarians cannot be governed, for this is the antithesis of freedom. As Proudhon said, to be governed is to be watched, inspected, spied upon, directed, law-driven, numbered, regulated, enrolled, indoctrinated, preached at, controlled, checked, estimated, valued, censured, dominated by creatures who have neither the right, nor the wisdom, nor the virtue to do so. To be governed is to be at every operation, at every transaction, noted, registered, counted, taxed, stamped, measured, numbered, assessed, licensed, authorized, admonished, prevented, forbidden, reformed, corrected, punished. It is, under the pretext of public utility and in the name of the general interest, to be placed under contribution, drilled, fleeced, exploited, monopolized, extorted from, squeezed, hoaxed, robbed. Then at the slightest resistance, the first word of complaint, to be repressed, fined, vilified, harassed, hunted down, abused, clubbed, disarmed, bound, choked, imprisoned, judged, condemned, shot, deported, sacrificed, sold, betrayed, and to crown it all, mocked, ridiculed, derided, outraged, dishonored. That is government. That is its justice. That is its morality. The left libertarian is not interested in taming bosses or politicians or governments or social abuses. We demand their elimination. This isn't done by force, but by a replacement of authoritarian systems by libertarian ones.